Representative Tasheva, thank you for taking time to talk with us today. Tell us what your understanding of the situation in Ukraine is right now.
Actually, now we have a war in Ukraine, and Russians destroyed our cities, our civilian objects. They killed our people at all of Ukraine, actually. They occupied new territories, for example, in southern part of Ukraine. My mandate it's on Crimea, but of course we monitor situation in newly occupied territories, in the Kherson region also. And they prosecute people on these territories also. They clean up all civil activists, journalists. They kidnap them, they tortured them in basements. And of course, it's a huge tragedy because we understand that war started 8 years ago, and not now, not 24 February this year. And war started with the occupation of Crimea and city of Sevastopol. But now we have a new stage of this aggression from Russian Federation.
So when we look at where the situation is now, I know there have been some developments today. There have been attacks, I've been told by sources inside Ukraine from the Ministry of Defense that there have been new attacks from Russia today in locations. What's the latest information that you can share about some of these attacks today?
Russian attacks every day Ukraine in different regions, but of course most of them it's the southern part of Ukraine and eastern part of Ukraine, and they attacked civilian objects. It's medical centers, it's schools, it's kindergartens, or even shopping malls. And today it's and also and Bila Cerkva, it's Zaporizhzhia city, it's a southern part of Ukraine or Kiev region also. Of course, they destroyed Donbas area, and if they during 8 years said that we protect our people in Donbas because they say we killed our people, Ukrainian people in Donbas, and they do this, they say special military operation, which they called a war against Ukraine. We understand they do not stop actually on one city or one region. And of course, for our people, it's very dangerous in different cities. For example, I myself, I live in Kiev, in the capital of Ukraine. And few weeks ago, we have a missile strikes in a civil building, and died Ukrainians. And when I live in the western part of Ukraine, during 1.5 months, when full-scale invasion is started, they also have these missile strikes again, and you don't feel protect and safety in any city. Mm-hmm. And all Ukrainians understand it.
Speaking of Kyiv, and that is in the western, I guess, northern part of the country. Just yesterday, which was the 12th of July, I got some information indicating that there is concern that Belarus might get into this war, or Russia might launch attacks from there. What's the situation there?
Actually, Belarus have a own role in this war. And we understand that now Belarus under control of Russian Federation, even not in a legal sphere, of course, but they under control of Russians. And President Lukashenko says that we need to protect our people in Belarus, and we do not attack Ukraine, we protect Belarus. And we understand, of course, that maybe in the nearest future, they attacked Ukraine also from Belarus territory, not only from missile strikes, because we have missile strikes from Belarus territory, but also with the armed forces of Belarus.
Representative Tasheva, this question I've asked a number of your colleagues, and I have to ask you the same question because we're still trying to figure this out. The ambassador Markarova told me a couple of weeks ago we should stop trying to figure out what Vladimir Putin's problem is. We should just stop him, and that's precisely correct. But many still continue to wonder, why is he doing this? What is his problem?
Yeah. He destroyed our nation. He need to destroy our country. And actually, for my opinion, that Russia or Russian Empire or Soviet Union, they colonized during centuries, actually, our territory, our mind. And after our independence, and especially after Revolution of Dignity, we have our own way, a way of freedom, which based on values, democracy values, human rights values. And of course, our choice, it's European integration and Euro-Atlantic integration. And they understand that we now decolonize our territory and our people. And I am a representative for Crimea. They do the same in Crimea during also centuries when they first colonizations of Crimea in 1783 by Catherine II. And when they colonized Crimea Peninsula, they moved from Crimean Tatars as indigenous people. And what we see now in Ukraine, it's our freedom, fight for freedom, fight for democracy, fight for human rights and other values, and fight for our own country. And the Russians and Putin understand that we do this job, decolonize our territory, and he, of course, do not agree with that. And it's a main reason why he destroyed our country, killed our people, and we must understand, all world must understand that he continue this war, not only against Ukraine. It's a war not only against Ukraine, it's against a civil world. And if we do not stop this war, but for our thinking, war is finishing after the occupation of Crimea, because war is not starting at 24th of February. It started 8 years ago with occupation of Crimea, and war is stopped with our victory, Ukrainian victory, with the occupation of all our territories, including Crimea and Donbass and Luhansk Oblast.
You were visiting the United States here for a time, for several days. What's your purpose here?
Actually, the main goal is, of course, highlight situation in Crimea after 24th of February, because we have a lot of updates, unfortunately, in Crimea, because Crimea's role in this full-scale invasion, it's a huge role, actually, because it's a military base for Russian Federation. It's a resource base for Russian Federation for occupying new territories. Because if we see to Black Sea region and all these missile strikes in western part, not only in western part of Ukraine, they do it from Black Sea fleets in Crimea. They use military personnel against Ukraine in the mainland of Ukraine. They stole grain from southern part, from Kherson region, transferred this grain to closed ports in Black Sea and ports of Sevastopol. They falsified the documents about this grain, Ukrainian grain, and then transferred to another regions via Black Sea, for example, to Turkey, to Syria, to another regions. And of course, we recognize these crimes as a war crimes, crimes against humanity, and persecutions of people and hundreds of people who protest and resist in Crimea against the war. It's anti-war activists who protest in Crimea now. And of course, it's a huge role, and we highlight this situation in DC, in New York. We have 2 days and public events in New York. Now we work with our partners here in US government, with civil society, with think tanks, with congressmen. It's very important that to highlight Crimea, because we do not forget Crimea in this full-scale invasion.
That's a very important point. You have not forgotten Crimea, and I certainly haven't, because I've been covering this, as you mentioned. This is not something that started in February of this year. This started 8 years ago, and I recall when it started and covering it then. One more thing I'd like to ask. What kind of response are you getting from Americans, leaders, politicians, business people, think tanks, etc.?
Actually, we have really very warm meetings and huge support from US government, and very important from US citizens. And all our Ukrainian citizens and Crimeans also, who are also Ukrainian citizens, of course, feel this support. This military support on the level of sanctions, which is very, very important. Even when I take a taxi or Uber these days, I always speak with drivers, and I feel this support from even from these people, ordinary US citizens. It's very important. And of course, very important to say that US government in 2018 established this Crimea Declaration. And last year, US government support Crimean platform. It's a platform for the occupation and reintegration of Crimea, which unite our partners in European Union, in United States, with Canada, Japan. It's very important. And of course, they support us with our issue of Crimea. They say that it's very important that we have meetings and our advocacy trip to US, because many people maybe a little bit forgot Crimea, because now we have full-scale invasion and many people is dying, but it's very important to highlight Crimea issue even now.
Well, Representative Tasheva, thank you so much for reminding us about Crimea and all of the elements that have taken place in this horrible war. And I want to let you know that we are continuing and will continue our coverage of this, and we'll come back to you again, hopefully in the future, for another update. Good luck with everything you're doing, and thank you again for taking time to talk with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for you and for your full support and highlighting the issue of Crimea and Ukraine. Thank you.